ladies and gentlemen, it gives me such an amazing honor to welcome Kristen Smith back to the show. Real to Real Talk,
Hello.
All Britain, Kristen Smith. And it's so good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. It's been what? Like several months?
It's been almost 10 months. It was shortly before the Oscars, or maybe shortly after the Oscars.
No,
So,
it was before the Oscars. I can't remember what we reviewed.
yeah. I don't.
Was it Zone
It
of
was definitely
Interest?
Oscar. It was definitely a Oscar nominated movie,
Yeah,
whatever it was.
probably. Knowing me,
Um,
it probably is.
yeah.
Just like this episode is.
Well, that's kind of what we bring you in for. I mean, we bring you in with the intent of getting your thoughts as wise and as thorough and well thought out they are on
Thank you.
award stuff. So you're return honestly, you're returning right at the right moment. So
Thank you.
I
Did I tell
I
you I did really well last year in
on
predictions?
predictions. Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, I got 20 out of 23.
Oh my goodness. No, I think I ended up somewhere in the 15 to 16 range, which is pretty good. But, not 20 out of 23. Actually, now that we're talking about it, I do want to talk about this really quick, even though I didn't say we
Okay.
were going to. Last year, I'm on record as saying of the Best Picture nominees, I genuinely loved 9 of the 10 movies that were nominated. The one
Yes.
outside being Maestro, last year was just for me a historically strong year for movies.
Which is the complete opposite of this year. Is that what you're gonna say?
That's what I'm going to say.
Okay, good. I'm
It,
glad we're starting there because that was gonna be my first point.
okay, good. I genuinely don't know that I've seen a single movie that would have made my top 10 this year. Like this, my number one movie from this year, I don't think would crack the top 10. And right now, my number one movie, without spoiling anything that we're going to be talking about today, right now, my number one movie for the year is Wild Robot. So
Okay, I've still have yet to see that one.
it's a good
I've
one.
heard it's good.
It's really good. But it's just like it's just absolutely perplexingly frustrating.
Like there have been some films that I will say there have been a few films that like I rewatched this year and just like found out I was liking more and more. Challengers is one of those, which was a
Yeah.
weird one that I was just kind of like, I'm kind of just vibing with the weirdness of this movie,
Yes.
that the
Yes.
movie that gives off. But like, I was actually before Nora, I remember lamenting to somebody. This was like mid October, and I was like, I've not given a 10 out of 10 to any movie this year. I am like, I have the highest for a long time was like 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of like there's such a wide range this year, but like nothing was like hitting me in the same way that last year that like Barbie hit me, the
Yeah.
same way that like
Uh,
Anatomy of a Fall hit me.
yeah.
Like
Anatomy of Zone of Interest hit.
Zone of Interest, like things that like
Yeah.
I watched and immediately I was just like, this is special. This is
Yeah.
something I'm gonna remember for years.
Right. Right.
And this year has had some good movies, but also I'm just like not
Yeah.
really feeling it. And
Yeah.
then that's why Anora was a really big like if we're because I think we're talking about Anora first, right?
Yeah. So let's dive right in. Let's go
Okay.
ahead. So that we'll pick up from there. So go ahead. Yeah. So
Yeah, it was like a breath of fresh air that I was like, "Oh, great. This is why like I know quite a number of people that don't watch new movies." And
right.
like I totally get it. Watching a new movie is such a like Russian roulette literally
Yeah.
for this movie of just like of like you never know if you're gonna watch something and vibe with it, if it's just gonna be okay, if you're gonna hate it.
Right.
And like watching this movie was a movie that I was just like, wow, I'm just so happy this entire movie. And I'm
Yes.
like, this is why I watch new movies for like this kind of experience.
Yes. And let's just kind of set the scene for Honora. So Honora, I would say, was the favorite or a favorite in Cannes to win Palme d'Or, and it did. It won Palme d'Or in Cannes, and so I mean, look, this show and we have a long history with Palme d'Or movies, and so yeah, so first of all, it's not surprising that you and I are like, oh, we have to talk about this movie, and then it, what it's difficult to look at the Palme d'Or winners and say anything about, well, what does that mean for the American award season? Because sometimes Parasite, it's like it's super predictive. It's
Yeah.
just it's
I
like a
mean, they've been hitting a lot lately.
correct. And even if they don't hit like with the actual winner, they'll hit with something that kind of it gets hot, stays hot, and is at least talked about.
Yeah, or it's something that, like, didn't win the big award, was still part of a conversation, like Drive My Car won just screenplay that year,
Sure,
and
sure.
then that one hit off at the Oscars.
Sure, sure. Or similarly, like Triangle of Sadness, which it didn't get a lot of like momentum to actually win the Oscar, but it got quite a few Oscar
Yeah, the
nominations after
picture
the strike.
director original screenplay, which is
Right,
the correct nominations for that movie, although I
right.
would have given it a few more, though.
No, I understand. But Anora, when I sat down and watched this, I was like, okay, I knew just from the standpoint of, okay, it's a Palme d'Or movie and it's right now the Oscar favorite. I understood what that meant, and I left feeling like, okay, finally we have a movie that if it wins Best Picture at the Oscars, I'll be like, all right, cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
honestly, if this won Best Picture at the Oscars, this would be my favorite Best Picture winner of the decade so far,
Oh wow,
honestly.
okay, okay, cool, great. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to sit down and really think about it, but like it would definitely be up there. It would definitely be up there for me as well. And it certainly, I'll say this for sure, it would be my favorite winner of the decade if you just took a look at who was nominated, who do I want to win the most? Because the movies that I want to win almost never win. Whereas right now I can say without any sort of hesitation, like definitely Anora, with everything else that's being talked about getting nominated, Anora is definitely like, yeah, that's the one for me that I would want.
Yeah. This is like I and it does feel like it's trending that way, especially in a year like this where
Mm-hmm.
like you'll have some crowd pleasers. Like the other movie we're talking about is also technically considered a crowd pleaser. But like this was the one that like is one of the few movies this year I've been like with every person, I'm just like, go see Anora. Anora is so much fun. Like
Yeah,
it's so
yeah,
chaotic, but it's
yeah.
chaotic in a way that just is just such a great time at the movies.
Genuinely. And so just to kind of set it up, Anora is the titular character of the movie. She is a stripper in Brooklyn, I think, possibly
Yeah, New
Queens.
York. Yeah, I
Well,
it's
they
been a few
go they
weeks since
go
I've
to
seen it.
Coney Island. So I gotta think it's Brooklyn or Queens.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, she is, in a stripper in somewhere in the greater five borough area. Let's just say that. And she speaks Russian, as a result, ends up being, you know, the the go-to for a Russian high roller that comes into the club, and they end up having, for lack of a better term, they end up having developing a Pretty Woman-esque arrangement, with a lot more fucking, like, and it's just fucking. I mean, like, let's not. The thing that I love about this movie is that it's like, oh, so you want a Cinderella story? Okay, is this the kind of Cinderella story you want with hard fucking? Oh,
Yeah.
you want Pretty Woman? Is this a Pretty Woman story you want with hard fucking and and lots of drug use? Because guess what? Prostitutes probably going to be doing hard fucking, probably going to be doing some drug use. It just takes the veneer off of the Cinderella slash Pretty Woman tropes, and just is like, you know what, this kind of feels more realistic. And then in the third act, that realism really kicks in and really questions whether or not should you have been enjoying this all along.
Yeah, like definitely like around the halfway point, the movie takes a hard left turn,
Yeah.
which is like what you would like. I remember hearing somebody talked about like the first half of the movie, like he was like, I feel like I could fly during this because like you get kind of really swept up with it. Like that's why I think the movie is really, really good.
Yeah.
And that like in all of this kind of like almost Wolf of Wall Street like level of excess that is happening
Yeah.
between these two characters that I'm just like, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I understand, like I totally get it. Like I'm kind of swept up that like yeah, sure. Like, because we're so used to love stories like this, especially like in Hollywood, that like there's
Right.
the pretty woman, like the sex worker who like gets magically, um, or in some cases just like the person who's impoverished. This gets like
Right.
magically swept up by like the rich person that sees them for all their personality.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the movie is just like, oh, this is the reality of the situation. Like
Right.
this is the inevitable, like what would happen
Right.
if this situation happened. And like that's why like I uh like
It gets
I have a lot of feelings, especially with everything that's gone on in the past few weeks, being like, yeah, people should watch this movie because like if this movie has cemented anything for me, I'm like, yeah, rich people don't give a fuck about you.
do not give a fuck about you at all. For rich people, everybody else is simply a an item to be purchased, and
Yeah.
is a material good to bring entertainment, and that's it. That's all we are to rich people. All anybody
Yeah.
is, to rich
But that's
people.
like
And
kind of the American dream right now.
I
Like the
to
American dream is either like you woo somebody not necessarily romantically, but like
Mhm.
you've gained the attention of a rich person
Right.
and or you get in an accident and you get a nice juicy settlement. Seems like
Right.
the American dream right now.
Yeah, I would love to get a settlement right now. I'm kidding. Um, so it's so, and it's such a hard, that third act is such a harsh reality. And look, the movie even throws in the trope of, oh, the Frozen trope, we'll call it, where it's like, oh, so yeah, you know what, the rich guy, we know the rich guy sucks. We're sorry, we kind of snuck that in on you, that the rich guy that would be the big hero, but he actually turns out the rich guy's an asshole. But you know what, here's the actual knight in shining armor who is going to sweep her up over her feet. Not the rich guy, but somebody on her level, that is, actually is a really good person, and who she falls in love with, and everything's going to be happy. And then it's just like, that fucking doesn't work either, people, because once you've gotten a taste, it's there are emotional consequences, that you can't just be a plaything and then just kind of forget that you were a plaything.
Yeah, and then also kind of true to the situation of just like you're in the situation and she thinks multiple things. She thinks one, well, we've done this legally. We're adults. Of
Right.
course, like we should be allowed to have this relationship with each other.
Right.
Which is just like, no, not when you're dealing with the people that you're dealing with. But also she thinks like, oh, if I just like say the right, like it's kind of serial
Right.
killer logic of like, oh, if I just say the right things, if I
Yeah.
just like show that I'm a good person, show
It's
that like
yeah.
you can
It
like me, that there's something more to me than just what was the reason that you were drawn to me in the first place. That
I,
like
it's interesting that you call it serial killer logic, because I understand where you're coming from, but the movie, here's the thing: is, for me, Anora is the trope of the movie, of 100 different movies, and so this is the instance where she's kind of like the intelligent, streetwise person, you know, like a Marissa Tomei from My Cousin Vinny type of thing, where she's strong, she's forceful, she's powerful, she has a voice. And it's like you don't understand. Being strong and forceful and powerful and having a voice doesn't mean that you are strong, forceful, and powerful or have a voice around these people. Like, it does not fucking work that way. You know,
Yeah, because we're like expecting it.
right,
She's expecting it. She's
right.
like going into situations being like, I know how this is gonna like, I know how I can fix this situation. I
Yeah.
know how I can fix a situation for me. Because
Yes.
all other movies I've ever seen ever in my life
Yep.
have shown that like
I fix this for me. And
exactly. Like
yeah. And even though, you know, I don't end up with the rich guy and I don't, I still end up with a honey pot of a deal because I stood up and I'm forceful and I have a voice. And it's like, bitch, you do not have a voice. I'm sorry.
yeah.
It's like, I don't want to use that. I shouldn't use that word.
Yeah, but you
Um,
know who does have a voice? Everyone in this movie, because the second half of this movie is also just a lot of screaming,
I
and
know.
it's some of
Yes.
the funniest fucking shit I've
It's
seen
really,
all year.
yes. It, and that's it. And really look, and when you have to, at the end, look, the end of the movie is really fucking sad. Like, let's just not, like, the last scene of the movie is just like fucking heart wrenching. Okay. And it really makes you forces you to look inward and say, oh shit, was I shitty for enjoying this? But then when you look back and realize what you were laughing at, it's like, no, it's okay. You there were it was okay to like a big chunk of this movie. You were just shitty for thinking it was going to end okay. Like that, you know, it's one thing to be having fun and thinking, oh, this is going to have a happy ending, and it's another thing to just have fun on the terms of that the movie's presenting. Do not have any expectations of what the ending's going to be.
Yes, because I actually had a friend of mine who did not like the ending, and like it does
Well,
not.
it's tough.
It's a tough ending,
It's tough.
and like it's to me also the logical way this has to end. Like
Yeah.
because this is sort of what we've been building to.
Yeah.
Is like the deconstruction of this like pretty woman, like what we've come to expect in a story like this. And
Right.
so like, and again, bringing it back to recent events feels very true for like what so many people have felt in the recent past,
Yeah.
who probably will be feeling again pretty soon,
Yeah.
that like thinking that like, oh, I'm able to maintain this fantasy
Yeah.
of mine.
Fucking the rich guy is going to work out well for me.
Exactly.
Guess what? It's not going to work out well for you.
And it's funny too because like this movie and another movie which hopefully we can get together and talk about, The Brutalist,
The Brutalist,
are
yes.
pretty similar in themes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I am super stoked about The Brutalist arriving. I have no idea when that's supposed to be. I think it hits wide release mid-December. So,
Get
you
ready
know,
for a 3.5 hour movie with
I
Adrian
hate.
Brody.
I get an intermission. So all
Yes,
right.
they give you an intermission, and it's the greatest thing. Hollywood, if you're listening, if you're all the two people watching this right now,
Yeah.
please give us and keep giving us intermissions.
Right. Right. All right, Kristen. Here at Real to Real Talk, we do not do stars, we do tacos. And if we feel like something needs a little bit extra, instead of doing half a taco, we do add guac. Why? Because nobody eats a half a fucking taco. So, Kristen, please do the honors. Where do you land on Anora?
So this movie is already in my top 2 this year.
Sure.
It's like I said, a breath of fresh air,
Yeah.
like kind of unlike kind of how we started, where we kind of were just like, we're not sure if any of the movies that are in our top 10 this year would make our top 10 last year. Like
Right.
this is such a strong movie
Yeah.
that I expect will only just go up. Like the more that I watch it, the more like I can't wait to show this to my wife and
Right.
just like have her be like, what the fuck are you making me watch right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
So I get this movie um a 4.5 tacos with guac, because I think that the guac is, in a year like this,
Yeah.
like you're at least giving me something extra that like otherwise I am not getting from a lot of movies, and then
Yep.
therefore, like, I can give you a little bit more of an edge.
Yeah, I I'm really torn on this. I could not. Uh, it's either 5 tacos or 4 tacos plus guac. I'm gonna just right now. I'm at 4 tacos plus guac. Maybe because I'm in a bad mood. Just in general, like the pall hanging over the air, and not me, but like PALL. But
The Jake Paul?
Right. No. Uh, I just, I think it's a plus guac. I also would firmly believe that upon rewatch, I'd be like, oh, Jesus, this is such a 5 taco movie that it's not even close.
Yeah, it's like it's the Anatomy of the Fall route for me, where, like,
Right.
the first time
Right.
I watched it, I was like, "Oh, yeah, 4.5 out of 5," and then I
Right.
watched it again, and I'm like, "Oh, no, this is a 5 out of 5. Like, what am I
Yeah.
talking about?"
I haven't done a Anatomy of the Fall rewatch. I should do that.
It it really holds up, I think. I've watched it way too many times, and
Okay.
trust me, that's not a movie you should be watching multiple times. Yeah.
Well, Zone of Interest is the one I really, really want to watch over again.
Yeah, I bought it. I bought it for my birthday, like, back in August, and I
Oh,
still
happy
have
birthday to
just, like,
you.
I don't wanna bump myself out.
Yeah. Whew. Okay. Hey, Emilia Perez was another movie that we watched. Okay, so just so everybody knows, this is a movie that I don't remember which film festival did this hit big in.
Oh, Can.
That's right. It was Ken. It was
It won Best Actress for
it's one
all of the
best.
actresses. They gave it to all of them.
That's right. Which is a weird thing, but that's fine. Ken can do whatever the hell they want. And so it got it won in Cannes, and then Netflix either bought it up. I think Netflix bought it up. They didn't
Yeah.
fund it
It also
originally.
got, I think it also was runner up for People's Choice at TIFF.
Okay. Yeah. So, but so that's the accolades, and it's now streaming on Netflix. I did not get the chance to see it in a theater. I watched it on Netflix this weekend. I don't know. Did you get to see it in a theater or?
I almost did,
Okay.
and I'm gonna hold off until you're done, because
Okay.
I have
And
so many things to say about this
I
movie.
know. So I'm just trying to set the tone. So on the one hand, this has been a well regarded movie in a sense of here are some awards. On another hand, it has been a controversial movie because of one of the main sort of plot points of the movie. And to anybody, and I mean this with absolutely no due respect, to anybody who watches this movie is like, oh, I can't believe they did that. You need to grow the fuck up. Okay, you just genuinely need to grow the fuck up, because the shocking thing, the controversial thing, just is probably the least interesting thing of the movie in my mind. Like it's just it because the overall idea of the movie, and I'm just gonna lay this out, is can people change? Like that's kind of, or are you always going to be tied to decisions that you make in the past or situations that you were in the past? That's the general idea of the movie. Now I'm going to hand it over to you, Kristen. You start riffing on Emilia Perez.
Okay, so I had heard that this movie. I heard, like, I talked about, like, it being a crowd pleaser. Like, I had heard both that crowds really respond well to it, but I also heard it's, like, hit or miss for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And when this movie started, like, it starts off with this kind of weird, surrealistic, like, you're just having this camera push in on this mariachi band that is, like,
Yeah.
covered in LED lights
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And there's just sort of this weird, weird vibe, like, auditorily to this movie, to,
Yeah.
like, to this, like, camera work. And I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna be so in the pocket for this movie. And girl, let me tell you, I fucking hate this movie.
Oh.
I I had I only finished it because we had to talk about it. I
Yeah.
actually had to stop the movie because I was so mad. watching this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. All right. So the general conceit of the movie is that there is a lawyer in Mexico City played by Zoe Saldana. Zoe. Shit.
Yes, so I think it's Zoe Saldana.
Okay. It's either Zoe or Zoe. Anyway, Gamora. We'll just call her Gamora. No, I'm kidding. So she's a lawyer in Mexico City. This, by the way, probably unrelated to our criticisms or thoughts. This is a musical. It's an adaptation of an opera, which is like
Oh my god.
completely weird to me. But like there, anyway, it's a musical. Zoe Saldana plays a lawyer in Mexico City who's working for a defense law firm, but is not recognized for her contributions. She's not making partner anytime soon or anything. And it's established that she's not making partner anytime soon because she's a minority. She's Black. And but she is hired by a mysterious drug lord who hires her to help him disappear by way of through transitioning to a woman. And this isn't just like, I want to disappear, I'm gonna be, it's like she genuinely wants to be a woman. And so she pays Zoe Saldana to effect the change, to manage that transition for her. And then cut forward, we see Zoe Saldana in London, and her life is totally different now. And she's confronted by the former drug lord, now Emilia Perez. And then the movie moves on from there, where Emilia Perez basically tries to make up for some of the horrible things she did in her time as a drug lord. And that is so much to say about something that is just so like, are we seriously just going to be like, rich guy solves all the problems? Rich woman solves all the problems. Are we seriously like, is that seriously what, the message of this movie?
It's an interesting, like, I will say I'm on board with the premise.
Okay.
Like, I think, and this is partially why I'm just like, want to tell this movie to go fuck itself.
Okay.
Because, like, I feel like the general premise of, like, you have this drug lord who transitions, who becomes who, after they transition, have a better sense of, like, themselves and therefore want to help other people, like, kind of make amends, like, both try to rebuild their family while also trying to help people of the of a real issue of just like people who disappear in Mexico.
Yeah.
And so and then wrestling with the how much of that person that I've kind of left behind, like how much of the person is kind of still like all that shittiness
Right.
that was still present for me pre-transition, like how much of that is still present now in this life that I am trying to like both make amends for, be a better person for. And yeah,
And
kind of
washed
and
away through
yeah, and it's
payment.
just and like part of it is just because like this is a good premise that the movie kind of just doesn't dive that deep into.
Yeah.
And like kind of
This
like lots of questions that like a person, like I feel like if the movie was like not trying to be so many things,
yeah.
you could have a really good drama
Yeah.
and really kind of dive into these different aspects.
Right.
Although you're also giving her so much forgiveness for the terrible things that she's done.
Yeah.
Like
she was literally part of the problem with the disappearances within Mexico. Like she
yeah,
was literally
she's responsible for them.
a lot of them, and is trying to solve disappearances that she was directly responsible for.
Yeah, and like and at the same time,
With no repercussions.
no repercussions for her. Like she
No
feels good
repercussions.
about herself. Like again,
Yes.
it's like
She gets to
there's
she
no
gets
sense of
redemption.
equity in her. There's like not really a sense of equity
Right.
in her actions
Right.
because it's all based off of like, well, I'm a better person, therefore, like, I should be able to do all these things. That she still magically has so much fucking money in the world
Right.
that like no one kind of questions like who she is.
Right.
But like,
But
but then yeah,
that's my favorite song in the movie. Not really. That my favorite song in the movie is when she is doing the sort of like the press tour of, hey, we're going to be doing this thing to try to uncover missing, uncover the mystery behind the some of the kidnappings and missing people, and identifying them, finding them, blah blah blah. Part of that, a big thing in the refrain of that song is no questions asked, and it's like, and that line in that song is doing so much work in this movie of, people just, we're not asking questions. All right, let's not let's not really dive too deep in this thing. Let's just accept that this is a rich person who is going to be using their money for good. And it's like, wow.
yeah, and then I think so, and but it's also just kind of just again just not dive deep into
Yeah.
all the questions it could be asking itself.
Yes.
Like all of these moral questions
Yes.
that is kind of swirling both like pre-transition, post-transition, like everything
Yeah.
in the story. Like there's so many moral questions.
Yeah.
Like even the question of whether or not Zoe should be accepting the money from this person to
Right.
do all these services just to make
No.
them happy.
Yeah.
Like there could be a dramatic there could then be a dramatic tension to being like, do I really have a choice in this?
Yeah.
But instead she's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah. 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 I am going to sell out and then be happy in London.
And then the
The other,
musical
the
aspect
other,
though.
yeah, the final really important aspect of this that just doesn't work, is her family, played regrettably by Selena Gomez.
Really,
And
I think she's the best part of the movie.
really,
But it's also because
I'm
I
shocked.
was
I'm
grasping for anything.
I'm shocked that you're saying. I thought Zoe Saldana was the most interesting character and the best performance. Like it's interesting because Emilia Perez, the title of the movie, the character is just so, like you said, so you know unquestioned that she becomes one of the least interesting characters in the movie.
Yeah, really, yeah.
And the movies, and she's the titular character, and it's like, ow. It's like, it's, you can't be that deaf. You just can't be that deaf. um i I hate doing this, and I say that I say I hate doing this more often than I actually uh don't do it. But I hate taking the movie as presented. I always hope to appreciate and understand and comment on a movie as presented without throwing in my, well, if they had only done this, or I would have liked it better if they did this. But this movie is so much more interesting if Emilia Perez takes all of her money to pay for the transition, and then is dead broke after that, and it doesn't just wake up to being a new person with millions upon millions of dollars, like.
Yeah.
And
I feel that way if they just hire people who are good at singing.
yeah. So ultimately, and that's the final thing that I want to kind of hit on in this movie is that, was there a single song in this movie that you were like, oh wow, that's actually pretty interesting, or oh wow, that's gonna stick in my mind for a day or two, or
Like the press conference scene, like where Zoe is kind of dancing between tables. Sometimes I
the
do
press
get a
conference, or the press conference, or the one where they're like all of the former drug lords sort of officials that have been paid off.
I think maybe the drug lord officials one,
Yeah,
but
okay.
but that's also where, and one of the reasons why I turned so fast in this movie is because all the songs, there's a lot of just sing talking, like
Yes.
talking as singing. So like so
Yes.
it's kind of like with the story not really committing to the story. This movie doesn't really commit to being a musical
Right.
because people are half these songs are just sort of talking normally,
Right.
having conversations with each other.
Yeah.
Um, like no one is allowed to actually sing. Like there's a couple times that people are singing. Like Carla Amelia Perez will sing, but like these people are not trained singers. And other times, like I don't know if he had this. I don't like. I want to know if I'm crazy or not. I swear, this movie sounded 80 yard the entire movie. Like there are times where people
Interesting.
are talking, and I'm like, it sounds like you were talking like you were dubbed in afterward. And I mean like in
But
all dialogue.
just talking. Yeah, like the movie never commits to being like the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, where it's just like every single line is sung. You know, every single line is sung, and that's just the type of musical it is. Nor does it commit to being like, you know, your classical sort of Chicago or whatever musical where it's like, here's a number, we're giving you a number. And it's like, because none of the like there's the one exception, and I agree with you. The one that you mentioned is you know, at the fundraiser, we'll call it the fundraiser scene segment is definitely the most interesting.
Yeah, because like and this also kind of goes with the direction as well. Like there'll be times where like the movie is kind of magical, realistic a little bit,
Yeah,
and then and then for large parts of the movie, it's just not. It's just a normal story,
yeah,
and then you'll get back to magical realism, and then it'll go back to being like, especially like in the first parts of the movie where you're having like people doing choreography like around her as she was like trying to write this like closing argument,
right,
and like all this stuff to where like it okay this and then like the cleaning ladies are coming by and they're also singing along, so like it kind of feels like augmented reality. And
right,
then for most of the last half of the movie, it's just like, oh, this is just like regular things are happening, but they're just singing along with it. So like
right,
it felt like the movie just did not like, and I felt like that in the crafts too, that there was just so many like the editing was weird, that
yeah,
there's times where shots were happening, but they like the shots they were picking were kind of not, it sounded like it like felt like they were trying to stitch together a movie. I'm like the movie had a charm of like, I feel like if this was like an 80s movie, it would
yeah.
have the excuse of being from the 80s and not having a budget.
Yeah,
And like if it could get away with just being like, "Oh yeah, it was the 80s, like everyone was doing drugs, like that's why the singing was weird. That's why the direction is weird. That's why things don't kind of fit together. That's
right,
why there's so many weird choices." Like if it was an 80s movie, I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, it makes sense. People were just doing their own thing in the 80s. I'm just
right.
glad this exists." Whereas like now that it's 2024, I'm like, "Really? This movie is like gonna get nominated for picture, director, actress. It's gonna win supporting actress for Zoe Saldana and
I
like other Oscars, and I'm so
Yeah,
fucking mad it will."
I don't think it'll get director nominated. Do you think it'll
I
get
think
director?
so. It's
Oh,
that week of the year. I think so.
oh,
Most people are predicting it.
I'm gonna be talking about after you leave. I'm gonna be talking about a real pain, and if this gets nominated over Jesse Eisenberg, I'm gonna have to set something on fire. So my ultimately ultimately the most condemning thing I could say to this movie is I will not remember this movie in 5 years. I will have literally no recollection of anything from this movie in 5 years other than, oh, that's right, there were people that were butthurt because somebody transitioned in the middle of the movie. And it's like, that's it. Like that's the only like, and that's so depressing because that like, again, that is the by far and away the least compelling thing that happens in the movie ostensibly, but it's just like, oh, I
But you know what? If the movie was campy, like
yeah,
I'll give you also this. If the
oh
movie was
yeah,
campy,
yeah,
then the scenes where she is going to the surgeon
yeah,
and they're
yeah, yeah,
having a whole musical number about different gender affirming surgeries. And
yeah.
I'd be
John
like,
Waters needed to direct this. That's what you're
yeah,
saying.
like
Yeah,
again, this movie takes itself so seriously. It
yeah,
thinks it's so important.
it
And
really
like
does.
if it
Eh,
was just campy, if it just had fun,
yeah,
then I'd be like, I could give it some grace of
yeah,
just being a weird, at least campy movie. But no, this is a serious movie. That's a serious contender that thinks it's serious and it's
right.
having these kinds of scenes. And I was so
That
mad
that think
watching
that you
this.
can spend a small portion of your fortune to right the wrongs of your past. Just so, and by righting the wrongs of your past, all you're doing is finding the mass graves that you had hid 20 years ago. Wow, thanks.
I know. Girl, I was so mad watching this movie.
I
I
know.
was like so I was like so angry that I'm like, I'm committing to finishing this movie, but
I
I just
was
want to turn it off.
see, and it's interesting because I was mostly ambivalent while I was watching this movie, which I don't know if it's worse to be mad or ambivalent towards this movie. So I'll let the viewer decide. Okay, Kristen, once again, we're gonna do ratings. We're doing Emilia Perez now. I'm assuming we're not getting anywhere near our love for Anora. So why don't you go first?
I'm giving it the same what I gave it on Letterboxd.
Okay.
Like I gave it a 1
Oh wow. Okay.
because there are times where I feel like the movie is doing something like there's times
Yeah.
where like there's definitely certain elements like the premise, there's certain scenes that are happening that I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, like the beginning of the movie where I'm just like, oh, this is like setting up something visually exciting that it just never kind of capitalizes.
Yeah.
Or like different scenes like there is different like in the scene where Zoe Saldana is talking to all the drug cartel like paid off people.
Hmm.
And there are a couple shots in there where it's like a one take that's like going around the table, then it's going to Amelia Perez, and then it's
Right.
going back to Zoe. That I'm just like, if the movie had that level of precision throughout the entire thing,
Yes.
again, this would be a different movie than how it feels kind of stitched together to
Mhm.
kind of make sense of itself.
Yeah. It's interesting because you have such a well-reasoned and intelligent take on why it's getting one taco, but there's a contingency of the population out there that would give it one for
I
just
have a cl-
completely.
I have a close friend of mine
Yeah.
who she and I talk about movies, like all kinds of movies, and she gave this a 9 out of 10.
Oh wow.
And like there are people this hits,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
know.
so happy for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But just
I'm landing on two. I don't have quite the I like I said, I was just really ambivalent throughout. And normally this would be the kind of movie that I'd give two tacos plus guac because I don't hate it. I'm just never going to watch it again. But I am literally taking away the guac just for the utter vapidness of rich person comes in and saves the world, even though by the way they were terrible and they got rich by being terrible and they never actually had to suffer any repercussions other than, spoiler alert, dying in a trunk. And it's like, that's it, like really, like, you
oh yeah,
know.
then people just have a funeral because they're kind of sad about it, but they
Yeah,
also again they don't know
yeah,
who she was.
they are venerating her. Oh my god, that's right. Oh my god,
The
they
movie
they they,
venerates her.
they have a parade for this horrible,
And they
horrible, horrible
sing.
person
I know, they sing so passionately about this person that they love that
who
again,
who
they have
killed their family
who
and
killed
just
their
years
family.
later helped them find the family
Again,
that they
I
killed.
fast forwarded through that ending, so I was just like, no, you don't.
No.
I was
All
like,
right.
you're not doing this for
I'm
me.
changing my it's a one. That that is such shit bullshit. You're yeah. Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's one taco. I forgot about I had so checked out by the time we got to that
I was
part.
fast forwarding it by that point.
Okay.
I was like, if there's nothing else, that let this be done.
Yeah, and it was done. All right, Kristen, I am gonna go do a real pain right now, so I'm gonna give you the boot here in a second. But before I boot you, I just want to say again, thank you so much for coming back. Just in time, reward ceremonies. The Brutalist is, I will let you know as soon as it's out. I'm just, open door as always. Just let me know
Yay.
when you want to come on and talk movies.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All
Glad we
right.
can do this again.
I know, me too. I will see you in the near future, I hope, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Talk to you later.
All right. It's just me now, and we've got a real pain. Okay, so this is the second movie directed by Jesse Eisenberg. Jesse Eisenberg, okay, obviously is famous as an actor. He played Mark Zuckerberg in Social Network. He was in Zombieland. He's he's sort of like, his tone is modern day, not quite as creepy or weird, and a slightly better adjusted Woody Allen. I mean, that's sort of his tone in movies from in my mind. And A Real Pain, his performance in this movie is no different from that tone. The story follows two cousins. Jesse plays David. Kieran Culkin plays his cousin, Benji. Their grandmother has recently passed away. She left them some money to travel together to Poland to visit the place, places from her youth. They are Jewish. She was put in a concentration camp. She survived the concentration camp and then emigrated to the United States afterwards. And so I have to set this movie up with the opening. The opening is Jesse is in a cab in New York City on his way to an airport, relentlessly leaving messages for his cousin on with his cell phone saying, "Hey, are you on your way to the airport?" And then after he sends about the fifth message, they flash the title card, "A Real Pain," and it's funny. Like you just understand the annoyance of trying to wrangle a cat. Like everybody has the friend in their life that is the cat who just will not be wrangled. And yet, in this instance, the cat's actually already at the airport. And so they fly out to Poland. Look, this is this is just your classic odd couple buddy movie that where everything goes wrong and everything is uncomfortable and everything is funny and difficult and not funny. And this movie, it's difficult. Like there are difficulties with the movie, obviously, because these are a pair of Jewish men who have returned back to Poland and are part of their trip is to go to the concentration camp where their grandmother was taken. And that's not easy. That's never easy. That's never going to be easy. If that's the easy part of the movie for you, that I got, please reevaluate some things going on. And yet, Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin are so good playing off of each other. Kieran Culkin, basically, from my understanding, I've never seen the show, plays his, a proximity of his character from Succession. He's just absolutely hot fire, hot mess fire, just super hot mess, eviscerates everything that he's in. But as we find out in the movie, sometimes the brush fire that blasts through actually paves the way for new growth. And this movie does not pretend to be super deep. This movie does not pretend to be multi-layered, but it is super deep and it is multi-layered, and that's it really worked on me. It really worked on me very well. I genuinely thoroughly enjoyed every second of this movie, even though I really did not enjoy a lot of this movie. It just from the standpoint of it really makes you uncomfortable at times. I mean, it really is just tough to watch, but in a funny way. It just makes you so it puts you on the edge of, oh my God, this is so uncomfortable. I can't believe this conversation's happening. And then comedic release, and it's so well timed, it's so well put together, it's so well directed, it's so well acted. And it's absolutely a pleasure in some of the worst possible ways. That's the best thing that I can say about it. This is not Anora. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it is, but it is a really good 4-star 4 taco movie, and I highly recommend it. I really, really liked this movie. This is probably my favorite 4 taco movie of the year. I know the beginning of summer I was giving everything 4 tacos. Maybe I need to go back and give all of those movies 3 tacos plus guac, because this is genuinely a 4 taco movie. Or maybe I just need to bump up Anora in this movie by half a deal. Whatever. That might be where I land. But for right now, a real pain. It gets 4 tacos. By the way, by the end of the movie, they do the title card again, and you realize, and I mentioned the movie has so many layers, and you realize the multiple layers of just the concept of having a real pain. And it really is perfect. All right. So next week, Sergio's back. We're going to be doing Gladiator 2. I will be solo rolling with Wicked. We got 2 big ones next week. So, I might have a third one in there, but probably not. I am Paul Britton. This is Real to Real Talk. Thank you once again, Kristen Smith, for your just amazing insights as always. Hope to see everybody again soon.